These are 8 running back sleepers and busts for 2023 fantasy football redraft leagues. We're going to go through 4 sleepers and 4 busts at the running back position, kind of help you navigate your drafts this year, help you avoid those landmines, as well as target some sleepers with a lot of upside. So I will start us off here. We have David Montgomery. He's been one of my favorite guys to target this whole draft season. He has a 7th round ADP around running back 30, and that's just criminal in my opinion. He's playing behind a top 2 offensive line. I now understand they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. That is definitely the reason why Montgomery is going this late. But Montgomery and Gibbs are going to be used on the field a ton at the same time, in my opinion. You're going to see Gibbs just be the slot or run out of the slot. You're going to, especially with Jameson Williams out now with the suspension, and now he's even dealing with some injuries. They just don't really have anyone else to catch the ball besides like Amon-Ra and Gibbs, who's probably like their second best pass catching weapon. And so Montgomery's probably he's going to be the goal line back. And we saw what Jamal Williams did last year for the Lions. And I think we'd all agree that David Montgomery is a much superior talent to Jamal Williams. So, and he's just going in a perfect pocket of the draft. Load up on your receivers early. You can get elite quarterback, elite tight end, whatever. But David Montgomery, I would be perfectly happy with him as my running back 2 on my roster. If he's your running back 3, that's great. And if you're doing a 0 running back strategy, I don't even mind him as your RB1. Gets a little rough there, but I wouldn't mind it. So like it's just I see both Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs finishing as top 24 running backs, and I could even see them both finishing as top 12 running backs, kind of like I mentioned this, I think, on an earlier video, but like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram that year Alvin Kamara was drafted. It's just reminds me so much of that duo this year. So draft Montgomery.
Yeah. I mean, we saw what Jamal Williams did behind that line. I mean,
yeah.
And
Crazy.
Montgomery's going to get those red zone touches. So those TD opportunities are going to be there.
Yep.
All right. Coming in at number 2 for our running back sleepers, we've got Devin Achane. Devin Achane out of Texas A&M. Current ADP is 99, putting him at RB 39. So when we're looking at guys who are potential sleepers, we're looking for a couple of different things. One of those being a guy who can get increased playing time over the year. The Dalvin Cook signing to the Jets, I think the biggest winner other than the Jets in that whole signing was Devin Achane.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, Dalvin was between those 2 teams. He obviously would have taken up a ton of carries from Achane, and going to the Jets, since he's gone to the Jets, Achane's ADP has been shooting up, right? So they've got no vet signed. And while he will split carries, I ultimately think he comes out as the top back. Mostert and the race car driver, Jeff Wilson Jr., are both injury prone. My name is Jeff Wilson Jr. Both injury prone guys who have not played a full year in a long time. We also look for guys who are in solid offenses when we're talking about sleepers. Chain is on one of the best offenses in the league. With a healthy Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, I mean, that team is built for speed, and he fits that profile perfectly. He's not like an amazing pass catcher out of the back by any means, but he's a good, formidable pass catcher. He's probably the best pass catcher in that backfield. And just with his speed, fits this offense perfectly. The other thing we're looking for in sleepers is strong performances in previous years. Obviously, rookie in the NFL, so we'll look at college. Played obviously in the best conference in college in the SEC, and over the last 2 years averaged 1,000 yards rushing, 8.5 TDs, and 30 receptions. So not amazing numbers, but where he's going at in a range with a lot of RB2s. I think he's a guy who's actually got some RB1 upside towards the end of the year when you're really needing your guys to score. So I think at RB 39, a chain is definitely a guy to be targeting late in drafts.
I mean, you talk about his college career in football, but this guy was an absolute track star.
Yeah. Speed.
Yeah. And Mostert was like their speed running back, and he's now 31 years old. For running back that has only played 2 full seasons, has only played 2 full seasons in his NFL career.
Yeah.
He's been injured about every other year, so it's just down the stretch, it's going to be. You might see early on Mostert, Wilson, but down the stretch, it's going to be a King. That's going to do all the damage.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, coming in at number 3 here for sleepers. We got Samaje Perine. Current ADP is 104. That's around the ninth round right there, and he's going as the RB 38 off the board. With the Broncos having the 6th easiest running back schedule, I think he's a great candidate for a sleeper this year. One of the reasons why is, obviously Javonte Williams but Javonte Williams is coming off a serious knee injury that we previously discussed with Dr. Jesse Morse, and players to avoid in this upcoming fantasy draft is, that knee injury is more serious than a lot of people maybe think about, because news coming out of the Broncos camp is that Williams is going to be ready week 1. But even if that's the case, there's a strong indication that he could get re-injure that knee very quickly or develop other injuries as part of, trying to get back in the flow of the game. So besides, Javonte Williams, there is no other competition behind Perine. They haven't signed a vet yet to this point in time. Hopefully, they still don't do that, because Perine, coming off his season with the Bengals, obviously he was the, primary secondary back there in in Cincinnati. But at last year when Perine had 2 starts, he averaged 24 touches and at least 17.9 points, fantasy points a game. Last year as well, he was the primary pass catcher there in Cincinnati with, he was ranked 15th in running backs in yards per route and 14th in yards per reception. So using him in that backfield with that new offensive line that the Broncos have and the new offensive coordinator in Lombardi, I think he's set up for a really good year, especially if Javonte goes down or if Javonte is even delayed, to week 6 or, whatever it might be. I think he is a really good candidate to take around that range for an RB that could be potentially, a top 18 running back in the league.
McVay, he loves his running backs.
It kind of just comes down to, if you believe Javonte stays healthy, okay, great. They're probably still going to be in some type of committee. But then you just have that risk. And it's like behind Perine, you have Tony Jones Jr. and Tyler Batty.
Who?
Yeah, it's not good.
He's bad.
If Javonte Williams doesn't hold up, Samaje Perine will 1,000% be paying off. He's going to be like an RB2 every single week.
Yeah. So. And I forgot to mention, Sean Payton historically loves to use 2 running backs. So like PB said, even if Javonte is there, Perine's still going to get a lot of touches.
For sure. All right. Last sleeper here. We're going to round it out with James Cook. Consensus ADP is in the 30, which is just criminal. This guy, when he was playing, he averaged
the 5th. You mean RB30?
RB30.
RB30.
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty high.
RB30. Pretty low. I think it's if we want to look at the ADP,
70.
Pull it up real quick. It's in the 70s, I think. So
78.
Yep. So I think that's absolutely criminal for a Bills player to be that low and such an explosive offense when there's no one else really in that backfield. I don't think Damian Harris is going to be snaking much of the work, but the impressive thing is James Cook came in as a rookie and he averaged the 5th most yards per carry in the NFL as a rookie. And PFF also gave him the best breakaway run rate at 44%. So highly explosive player. We saw him kind of start to be used in the passing game. That's where he really started to thrive, which we absolutely love when running backs, right? And he's a pretty efficient runner. So fits the mold perfectly for that Bills team. He's going to look to progress, build off an awesome rookie campaign. And definitely a sleeper here. One of those like guys, if you're going hero strategy, one big running back up top, I think he's an awesome number 2.
Yep.
I've been doing that quite a lot because I like him that much. I think he's got a ton of upside, big play potential in one of the best powerhouse offenses in the NFL. So for that reason, he's our 4th sleeper this year.
Yeah, he's right in that like pocket of us. Like David Montgomery goes right before him. It's just this running back pocket of drafts is just great for some of these sleepers.
That's where you get the value.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to our busts now. Corey kind of already, you kind of had to talk about him to talk about Pirine, but of course, that's going to make Javonte Williams one of our busts. Tore his ACL, MCL, and PLC. As we know, these just ACL injuries alone are very hard to recover from. They do not heal this fast. I understand everything out of camp. He looks great. He's going to play in the preseason, but like I'll believe it when I see it. Like when I see him taking these hits from other teams over and over and over again, and he can, because like Corey mentioned, when we talked to Dr. Jesse Morse, it's not only a physical thing about just that injury recovering, but then it's a mental game as well. If he's a very explosive runner, and if he is trying to overcompensate because he doesn't quite trust that knee yet, it's gonna cause a bunch of other different injuries as well. So in redraft leagues, especially, like I understand if you play like these tournaments and stuff like best ball, you can embrace some risk there. But redraft, where you're only playing against 11 other friends, you don't need to take on this type of risk in your draft, in my opinion. When there's other guys like Montgomery and James Cook all go kind of in this range. It's just like Breece Hall, even for example, who only suffered an ACL. They just signed Dalvin Cook to $8.6 million. And he even said in an interview today that he's a little hesitant to make those cuts. And that's kind of the mental game. So yeah, Javonte Williams, we talked about it in other videos. Just don't draft him this year. He's a very heavy risk every single week on your team.
His ADP has been
and he's probably, it'll probably continue to climb too, I imagine, till up till September when everyone does their drafts, because he's probably going to play in the preseason and look okay, and that's going to be enough for people to just like be like, oh, he's ready, week 1, Javonte, and they're going to take him.
Yeah, hopefully for his sake, he does not get hurt in preseason.
Yeah,
I know that. I think it's such a mistake to play him in the preseason.
All right, coming in at our number 2 bust, maybe our hottest RB bust take. We've got the King, Derrick Henry. ADP right now is at 21, which puts him at RB6. And yes,
16 RB6, or he's going at 16.
16.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I get it. Derrick Henry has been an absolute monster pretty much every year that he's been in the league. They call him the King for a reason. But we know with running backs, as they age, they tend to regress. Derrick Henry is 29 years old and has about 1,750 carries over the course of his career. That is a ton. This is a guy who's averaging like over 300 carries a year. So it's a matter of figuring out when those wheels might fall off. His yards per carry has dropped every year of the last 4 years. So we're already starting to see some of that regression. Pair that with PFF having the Titans O-line ranked as the 32nd in the league. For those of you who aren't aware, that is the worst in the NFL. You then add in the Titans drafting Tyjae Spears and adding D-Hop in free agency. Those guys are going to take away some of those carries and some of those targets. And then you pair it with an aging Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis or Will Levis. I know that Derrick Henry has been basically 80 to 85% of the Titans offense the last couple of years, but I don't see him being able to continue that production. He's already suffered a foot injury. 2 years ago, which obviously didn't do much to him last year, but it's something to keep an eye on. And in this range, the RBs that are being drafted before him largely have huge reception upside. They're dual threat RBs. They're guys who game script is not going to affect their game quite as much as it will for Derrick Henry. Yes, the Titans feed Derrick Henry nonstop, whether they're down or up, but he's not a threat in the passing game and hasn't been his entire career. I think he's just being drafted a little bit too high this year, and I think this is the year he finally doesn't pay off that early second round, first round price tag.
Yeah, and his highest like usage in the pass game was, I think, last year, but that they had like legit nobody as like Julio got injured. It was Treylon Burks, who I think wasn't even like they had nobody.
Yeah.
So they had to like use him somewhat in the passing game, but they have a lot more bodies now that he probably won't be nearly as utilized as a pass catcher.
Yep. All right. Coming in at number 3 here, we have Najee Harris as a bust candidate. He is currently ADP is 26, so early third round here. He's RB11 off the board with a running back schedule, strength of schedule around 17, so kind of middle of the road for the Steelers. Last year, obviously, he was injured the first round 5 games with that Liz Frank injury, playing with that steel plate in his cleat. And I mean, he just, even when he got healthy after those first 5 games, when he was considered healthy, he had the 5th lowest breakaway percentage in the final 12 games when he was considered the healthy portion, which is not great for a running back. The other big issue with him, obviously his rookie campaign, he finished with an absurd amount of targets, around, I think it was around 96. It was. And partly the reasons what we've mentioned beforehand is Big Ben was still the quarterback there, and Big Ben cannot throw that ball more than 5 yards, wet noodle arm there. So, and then last year his targets decreased by 40, which was massive. And one of the reasons why that is because Jaylen Warren, the rookie running back that they drafted last year, emerged as a pretty good pass catcher. And in the final 8 games of the season last year, when both Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris were healthy, Jaylen Warren played in 40% of those Steelers games, like snaps. So, I mean, that's a high number for, a backup running back, considering where Najee's going. I just think that it's going to turn into more of a timeshare. Obviously they took Harris in the first round a couple of years here ago. And they want to, kind of preserve their pick here with Najee and make sure, they don't run him into the ground. And again, the Steelers, I mean, they kind of bolstered their offensive line this year, but it's still not like they have this great offensive line that's, a top 10. I mean, I throw them, end of, probably around the 20th mark as their ranking. So it's just a weird name for, Najee to go there. And I think there's so many better candidates, around him or even past him that you could, definitely pick up one of these sleepers we talked about in the previous episodes, and don't race your 26 pick with Najee Harris this year.
Well said.
Yeah, their offensive line is still bad.
Yeah. Jaylen Warren was also one of the most efficient rushers in the NFL too.
Not pass catching. He was very good at running the ball. So you can't really take him off the field. So
Najee just wasn't getting it done.
No.
All right. So for our last bust candidate of the year, we have Miles Sanders, a guy who had his first over 1,000-yard season last year behind the best offensive line in football, the Philadelphia Eagles, but finds himself on the Carolina Panthers now. My main concern with him is he was only ever able to break 100 yards twice with the Eagles. Come on. A run-heavy team, the best offensive line in the league, and he could only do it twice. Very concerning for me. Carolina had a pretty decent line last year, but I don't know if you saw the Hard Knocks preview come out where Quentin Williams in the practice against the Panthers put up like 11 sacks in one day against them. So it's like, I'm a little bit concerned for the offensive line, something to watch out for with a rookie quarterback. I just don't know that they're going to be able to like put some sustained drives together in a consistent fashion, even with the number 1 pick, Bryce Young. Like, I don't know. I think that team's in obviously a rebuild mode. I think they might try and pass a lot to get Bryce Young some good looks and like, kind of just lean on him and try and help him grow. Miles Sanders might be a second afterthought. And for a guy who's going pretty early at ADP 50 right now, that's not what I like to see. We talked a lot about our sleeper candidates already. There's a lot of better options out there. I think he's going way too high for someone who doesn't have a ton of upside. He barely got it done behind the best line in the league last year. And on top of all of that, he's only played one full season out of 4. So there's a 75% chance, if you're going off the numbers, that he's sitting out at least a few games, at least 5 games, 50% of the time. So I don't love that.
Yeah.
He already got hurt in preseason too. I mean, nothing serious, but just like one of those things where it's just a guy who's got history and then something pops up in practice. It's just like another knock there.
I honestly think what happens is, they see him go to a new team and you're like, oh, he's going to be the workhorse.
Right.
You go listen to the beat reporters. Chuba Hubbard's already solidified the 3rd down role, and the season hasn't even started. So like, this guy's not going to be a workhorse back like we all thought when he signed there. Like, I don't know, just not a Miles Sanders guy this year.
Yeah, and what I think is the craziest thing is, okay, last year when we knew he was playing for the Eagles, he was going a round or 2 rounds later than he is now, when we knew they had a great offensive line. And now, of course, he had a good year with the Eagles.
Yeah.
Even with only having 200 yards, he scored a lot of time. But that's behind the best offensive line, one of the best offenses. Now he's going to the Carolina Panthers, and people are just basing last year's numbers off of where they're drafting him this year. And now he's going a round or 2 ahead of where he was going on the Eagles. It makes no sense. Do not draft him in the 4th round.
Yeah. I just don't think the game scripts are ever going to go his way. Like, do you see that offense blowing everyone out? Adam Thielen's their wide receiver 1. Like, he's 34.
Yeah. Not great.
Does that wrap that up? I don't believe anyone had another one.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
All right.
Good.
That'll do it for 8 sleepers and busts for the running back position. We'll be back to cover the last 2 positional categories. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe. Helps out the channel a lot. And we will see you next time.